Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 242. Today we are talking about walking away from property development deals. And it might feel uncomfortable and you might not want to do it and you might think you've invested so much time, so much money, but we've got some valid reasons why you need to sometimes walk away. So this week, Bob and I will unpack the things you need to look out for and when it is time to sometimes walk away from a property development deal. Let's jump on into episode 242. Hello and welcome to episode 242. As I said, walking away from development deals, so annoying because sometimes we spend so much time looking and we think we've got a winner and then we have to walk away. But before we jump into this week's podcast, the book. This week goes to Maritza Fadoulis. Just join our mentoring program. We can't wait to see your success. So this will be in the post to you. Probably go out today. Anyway, before we get started, good morning, Bob Anderson.
Oh, very formal. Good morning, Hilary Saxton.
Bob and I both have dodgy voices. We've just been back to New Zealand for my daughter's wedding, which was pretty full on. Got back late Monday night. Best wedding I've been to in my entire life.
Yeah, it was a great wedding, all right, Jay. I'm getting over it.
Yeah, you brought back some sort
I brought a cold back with me, which is a problem.
Yeah, it's a little bit sad. Anyway, beautiful Queenstown wedding. Pictures are back already. Absolutely stunning. So for many of our people in our community know Georgia. So it was Georgia and Jono that got married and it was really lovely. I got to walk down the aisle, which was kind of nice. No hints there, Bob. It's all good.
Oh. Do you want another aisle walk?
No, I'm good. Anyway, so today we're talking. Oh, no, before we do, Bob, what's your tip?
Well, it's related to that. Dress for the weather.
Yes.
Which is why I'm all croaky. The day after the wedding, day 2, I wasn't warm enough. I didn't really look at the weather enough. Ended up going cloudy. It started off sunny, went cloudy, went cool. And then we stayed so long out. This is outside, as you know. And then it started to rain and all sorts of things happened. And I just didn't dress appropriately. And as a result, I'm all croaky.
Well, there you go.
Dress for the weather, or better still, look at the weather before you choose your clothing.
Yes.
I just looked outside. Oh, it's sunny, and steamed off, not thinking about what could happen later in the afternoon or the evening.
Queenstown sunny, good day there is 18 degrees, so it was pretty cool considering it's summer. Anyway, Bob, today we're going to unpack walking away from a property development deal, and I know we have a plethora of examples because we do. And haven't done it ourselves. But let's start with number one. Why can walking away be really hard for people to do?
I think that one of the reasons is time investment. If you invest a lot of time and effort in something and then you reach a point where you can't proceed with it, even if it's not property development, it could be anything really, you don't want to because of that investment of time, probably emotion. And it can be hard to just walk away. That's why I often say you've got to be really analytical with property development, study the numbers. But, yeah, I've seen people definitely really fight giving up a deal like when I say give up a deal, not proceeding to contract because they've spent so long. They do all sorts of things to try and make it work. Some of them silly things. But, yeah, it's hard. If you spent quite a bit of time looking for a deal, you found a really good deal, you think it's a cracker deal, and then you start digging further and it starts to drop, the margin starts to drop, and you're doing all you can. Oh, maybe I can get a bill price that's better than what I think I'm going to get. Maybe the market's picking up and I can sell it for more. Maybe this, maybe that. That's bringing emotion back into it, but you're fighting to try and keep it. And there's times when just face the numbers. I was going to say face the music, face the numbers. And if it's eroding, your profit's eroding to a point, well, look, you just got to say goodbye.
It reminds me of Kyle, and I know you listen. Good morning, Kyle Beaky. He looked at so many deals and he came so close so many times. Not they weren't walking. Well, that was walking away. Like they're just little things that were niggly that meant that wouldn't work. So I think he's a great example of somebody who did walk away a lot, and the disappointment that he had to deal with because it took him a while to find a site.
Yeah. But boy, when you find one, isn't it worth it?
Oh, yes, so
You know,
exciting.
it could be easy 5 or 6 years salary that you profit, so even if you wait a bit and get the right deal, it's certainly worth to wait to get the right deal than to go in early and try and get the wrong deal off the ground.
I think that's something that people may not realise with property development, that finding a site can take time, but the reward is big. It's not an instant thing. It's not, I found a site within 2 weeks and it went ahead. It's going to take time to find the right deal, and you will have to walk away. And usually it's a quick feeso. No, it's not going to work. But sometimes, like you said, that time investment, because it's looking like it will work, that sort of is difficult for people.
Yeah, and it's huge and it's life-changing. I remember when we were looking for a new lounge suite, remember?
Yes.
And we looked and looked and we went around all the shops. It took a while to find one that we liked, but that's only like a lounge suite. I mean, we're talking about making hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mm.
And so it is worth the effort.
Bob, I remember a story too that might be worth sharing about somebody that came back to us, and they had bought a site hoping that, or knowing that the margin was low because they had enough money to buy the site. So I think we're going to talk about finance a little bit later, but they had enough money to buy that site. So they went ahead, got it with the hope, because I think they bought it at about a 9% margin. And with the hope, do you want to finish off that story?
Yeah, so, well, that sort of throws it into finance a bit, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Will we cover that later?
I'm not sure. Just go anyway.
Well, look, what they did, they found a site, I think it was for a duplex. It really didn't stack up. I can't remember exactly whether it was a 9% return on cost.
Or 11?
Or 11. It might have been 11. But at that time, financiers were looking for 15. I think it might have been 11. So it was below the threshold that a financier would normally accept for a property development. So what they did, they bought this site not as a property development site, but just as an investment. So it was an old house on a block of land. So they just bought it as that. And so from a finance point of view, all they're looking at, well, is it worth what the purchase price is as a house? And it was, so they bought it. And the expectation, or the hope really, that by the time they got their development approval and their building approval and organised their builder, where they would then go and get construction finance to build the whole thing, they were hoping that the market would have moved up enough to lift it from, say, 11% return on cost to a 15%. The problem is the market didn't really move during that time, as it sometimes doesn't. And it was still showing 11 when they got there, but that wasn't enough to get the finance. So now you're left with a situation that you've got an investment property that you didn't buy as an investment property, you bought as a development site. And now you've got to sit on that for a period of time. What you're hoping for, of course, is the sale prices, because that's the biggest number that has the biggest effect on profitability. So you're waiting for that sale price to rise so that margin will then lift from 11 to 15, which is what it was what required at the time. And that can take a while. It could happen fast, it could happen slow, but then you're just spinning tyres waiting. Or do you sell it, maybe get your money back, maybe lose a little bit on legals and stamps, and then just rejig? But the point is, a mistake was made, and that's the price of that mistake.
I think you pointed out, well, there's a couple of lessons there. One, you can't go in assuming the market's going to lift and give you, an extra 4% return. You can't make that assumption. And you always say, Bob, we work on now. We work on today's numbers now, because that's what the value is going to do. That's what the financier is going to do. And that's the way property development is done. So we don't go on projections. But you brought up something else, which was quite an interesting point that other people may not realise, and you listening, that you said at the time financiers were looking for 15%. So it does move around a little, doesn't it?
It does move around a bit, yeah. When I first started 4 decades ago, everybody used to say, you need a 20% return on cost or margin on cost. For those that aren't familiar with that, it's a way of measuring profitability. It's your profit as a percentage of your total cost. And the old 20% came up, somebody said it the other day, this deal doesn't make 20%. Well, it depends on the deal. The smaller the deal, the less it has to make, because it's safer and quicker. So a 2-lot subdivision doesn't need to make 20%. A duplex doesn't need to make 20%. At the time, that project we just spoke about, financiers were expecting a duplex to make 15%. But that can vary over time for a whole range of circumstances. So, yeah, that's what it was at that time.
So, Bob, how do we know, and maybe this was the case then or maybe not, how do we know when emotion is taken over from logic?
I think when we start to struggle a bit or push the boundaries on trying to make it stack up. I alluded to that earlier. The biggest number in doing a feasibility is the sale price. It's by far the biggest number. So therefore it has the biggest effect. And so if we're starting to think, well, the market's going to go up, therefore I can put a higher sale price in my feasibility, or I'm going to make these look so great that I'm going to get more for them. And then they might start fiddling around with, construction prices. Well, I know it costs this much, but if I go to enough builders, I'll find one that really needs the work and I'll get it built cheaper, and that'll help. So when you start, it's a beginnings of desperation. When you start basically doctoring numbers to get what you want, that's when it's time.
Because as we say so often, it's not just us that needs that number. It's the broker, it's the financier, it's the valuer. All of these people come into play. And when you're looking for comparative sale prices, if there aren't any around, well, there's a reason for that. There's not a demand in the market. You don't really want to be the first person choosing to put a duplex right there or townhouses right there when they're not there. You might think it's a great idea. It actually brings me to my brother. He's over in New Zealand and he's got a wee farm, and we went and stayed with him at Christmas actually. And he was so excited about his subdivision. So he's subdivided off, is that 4 or 5 lots there?
I think 5.
Subdivided 5 lots, and with absolutely no idea on just understanding the market, because we talked to him afterwards. He goes, oh, yeah, I never thought of that. And so he cut this piece off. He goes, I could imagine like somebody buying this, they're reasonable size lots because it's out in the country, and they could put a BMX track for their children, and these people could put a horse there, and this one would be good for that. And yes, there is potentially the potential for that to happen, but it's what he would do. It's not necessarily what the market is after. And so if you're going into a patch and you're looking for comparative pricing, if what you're putting is not there, then you've got to question whether this is what the market wants, not because this makes your feeso work, because, often we go to, if you put more on, I'm going to make more money. And that isn't the case. Sometimes more on shrinks the size of the house. The market doesn't want that particular house there. And that means no one's going to buy it. So there's quite a lot that goes into really thinking about and understanding what's required, and then making sure that those numbers work in the feeso. And if they don't, then it's a straight walk away. Can you add anything to that, Bob?
Well, when we do any project, we go straight to the other end. Who are the buyers going to be? What do they want? What are they prepared to pay? And that's really just market savvy. That's going into the market and seeing what other developers are doing, what they've done, talking to agents about who sell these sorts of things. What are the buyers looking for? I mean, we did that. We've got a couple of industrial developments. We did that with, the type, the size of the industrial units, the type of the industrial units, who's buying them, what are investors looking for, what are owner occupiers looking for, what size mezzanine do we put in there? Like even things down to the power. Do we put a transformer in there, because it does help boost the power on each of the units, which a lot of people like and need. They're industrial, remember, they're not residential. So we go right to the other end and work backwards for that, really. And that means not just setting the sale price, but being aware that there will be demand when we get there.
So it is so much about the demand. So you just putting there something that works might not work for the market as well. And that's probably something we didn't even think about putting into this podcast, but it's quite relevant, isn't it?
Yeah. Remember the movie Field of Dreams, those of you that might know it, with Kevin Costner? One of my old favourites about 30 years ago. Build it and they will come. That's a sort of a saying at it. But like with property development, build it and they will buy? Well, not necessarily.
No.
You've got to do your market research and understand your market.
I mean, that's the full reason we do what we do, so people don't make those mistakes. I mean, we have a fabulous program, and we have a mentoring program, and if you're interested in education, you definitely need to have a chat with us, because what we offer is pretty, it's
exceptional.
It is pretty exceptional. How about just talking to Bob, Aaron, and myself whenever you want? How good would that be? That's what we offer. But not just, my brother choosing to build what he wanted. I suppose that's really a classic example of, build it and they will come, which they haven't. So, sitting on that. And that's just not understanding the market, not understanding property development, giving it a whirl. That's like a real mum and dad thing, really, isn't it? People think they'll have a crack and it'll be okay. But what you've got to realise is the holding costs. When you're holding, and what he could have done, with that money. And so what you can do with your money, thinking, I'll give it a go, or the margin's not quite there, but won't matter if I lose a little bit. It does matter.
Yeah, and you won't get to that point because you won't get finance. It's not a bad thing. Some people think, I've got to get past the valuer and I've got to get past the financier. And, well, that's a good thing because that can prevent you from getting into trouble. The problem is that by the time you get there, you've already bought the site. So you really have to get it right before you buy.
And that's why understanding fully what you need to have, like getting those ducks in a row, for the want of something.
Quack.
Because you're getting those ducks lined up actually matters when you're going into your property development. But what about delays? When you've got delays, what impact do they have on knowing it's time to walk away?
Well, it's a bit hard when you get delays because it might be too late to walk away. If we're talking about delays with getting approvals, unless you've bought on an extended settlement, like if you bought your site and then you lodge your development permit and it takes a bit longer than you thought and council are slow and, well, you can't just pack up your bags and pull out. Well, I mean, you can, but you might lose some money if you do that. So delays have an effect on your interest. If you've already settled and you're paying interest on your loan, then the longer it takes to get your DA means the longer the project is, which costs you interest. That digs into your profit. It just starts to erode your profit. That's what it does. But it's often after the fact. I mean, the perfect scenario would be if you could get an extended settlement whereby you could lodge a development permit while the current owner still holds it. You haven't settled, you're not paying interest. And if you go get your development permit, and we see this happen a bit, not often, but it can happen, by the time you settle, then that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, it's like happy days. How good's this?
Yeah, and it's worth asking. That gets back to why the seller is selling in the first place, but that's a subject for another one.
But what about the myth of good developers, they'll make it work?
Well, a good developer will have a better ability to overcome obstacles. Like when I say a better developer, an experienced developer who's been around the traps for a long time, been through the good times, the hard times, they'll be able to deal with some adversity if it comes up better than somebody who hasn't, unless that person has an experienced developer looking over their shoulder.
Oh, secret plug.
No, not going to plug it. People know what I mean.
Yeah.
But in that respect, yeah. But experienced developers make mistakes. I got a job with a big development company once. It's going back quite a long time, and they contracted and purchased a couple of sites. And my job as development manager was then to pick up those sites and run with them. They were large subdivisions. One of them was 400 lots, and they bought stupidly because there was a major problem getting the stormwater off this site. There was stormwater pipes there, but no, they didn't check the capacity of the pipes. The pipes were way too small to deal with all the stormwater off a 400 lot subdivision. And we ended up having to, what we call, augment the stormwater, which means build another stormwater pipe back 1 kilometre. That's expensive stuff. That's a very simple due diligence check.
What did you say when you found out? Did you just walk up to the big boss and put your hands on your hips and say, "What are you doing?"
Well, the big boss was in another state, but I I immediately checked it with the civil engineers, and I said, hasn't anybody checked this? And nobody from the development company had done it. I've seen big development companies make the dumbest mistakes sometimes. But anyway, I guess that's back to what I'm saying is experienced developers can make mistakes.
Can you share an example where, walking away is just absolutely the best thing to do? I can think of one. I can actually think of a few if you haven't got them.
Oh, well, you've...
What about when we walked away? We'd spent $10,000. That's with our development company, Ultra Urban, and so we spent $10,000. So what generally happens is we find a site, and then I bring investors in, and we invest. We make it like a joint venture with us and them, and they get a great return on their money. But we find the site first, so we spent that money looking and thinking, yeah, this is going to be a great site. And we had talked about it, or maybe about a while ago, maybe 8 or 9 months ago. But what happened is, so it was an industrial site, and the people we were buying it off they were Shonky. Shonky's a good word. They were dodgy. They were trying to cut costs, so they were just using, instead of a lawyer, they were using a conveyancer. And they didn't really know what they were doing. They were just trying to make money, and they had just lacked experience.
They had no idea.
No. And so for us, the best option was to go, not worth it. And I think that's nothing's happened with that site since, has it?
Probably not. No, that was all done during our due diligence period. Before we signed an option subject to due diligence, and it all came out during that 30-odd days. But they were a little group of people came here from another country, had no development experience, had a few dollars, put it together, scraped by doing a little industrial subdivision. It was about 20 blocks. But there's a lot of stuff they didn't do. There was things they didn't do correctly. We spent a few dollars on it. We got a survey. We did a soil test. We did a couple of things. As you say, it cost about $10,000. And it was getting nowhere. Our lawyer ended up doing their conveyancers work. It was just, I thought, no. Hey, we had a meeting, the three of us, and we said, no, look, this is just going to get worse dealing with these people. Let's just extract ourselves now. $10,000, that's okay. It's tax deductible. And we could see problems that were just problems we didn't even know about, what we were sure were going to pop up.
Don't even know the questions to ask when you're working with monkeys. And I think that was a great lesson, for you listening. You just got to walk away sometimes and make the call. And had we been emotive about it, had it been something we really wanted, because we were looking for a specific product we've actually got 2 underway, but it was after the first one, and when we were looking for the second one, just with these industrial units, and we were looking for that. And it was just at a time before prices went ridiculous on those. We were really lucky, got 2 great deals underway. And crikey, walking away, it was frustrating, but probably saved us an awful lot of money and headache.
You call it cheap insurance.
Yes.
And I've walked away from deals where I've bought, I can remember one site, I might have talked about it recently, potentially 22 townhouses, but I thought there could be some overland flow problems. So I got an engineer to do a flood assessment report on the overland flow. And sure enough, in a big rain event, that site took a lot of water, and it reduced my yield right down and made the whole thing unviable. It probably cost me about $4,000 for the report, but it was cheap insurance. I just walked away then.
I also remember a mentoring couple that went through the program a while ago, Craig and Tia, and they've got Mint Developments. They have a wee newsletter. Check out their website. It's at Mint with a double T.
Yep.
Yeah, and they send out an update of what they're up to. They do everything we told them to do, and they're doing so well. They've got socials. They're on Instagram and they're on Facebook, and they've got it all going on. But I remember they went to a different property. What's the word I'm looking for? Event, yes. And that's cool. We always tell our people, got to go to all of the events because that's great networking. Hence the reason you need to come to our 3-day workshop, 1st, 2nd and 3rd of May. That's where joint ventures happen. That's where you learn about property development. It's where you plant seeds about your future. And it is just 3 full days of property development. Anyway, they went to another, like one day or being whatever it was, somebody's
afternoon
event that they had. And they met somebody there and they ended up wanting to do a joint venture with this person, and they went down the road a little bit. But they actually ended up pulling out because of the ethics of the other person. They didn't like the way they behaved. It just was, they thought, very unprofessional. And I think like non-ethical. That was probably what it was, Bob?
Yeah, well, there certainly wasn't the synergy for those reasons that you just said. And if you're going in with a joint venture partner, it's probably going to be a 2-year project, let's say. You've got to deal with each other for 2 years. If you've got hesitations at the beginning, I can tell you it'll only get worse. So you have to be aligned. Your values have to be aligned. Just everything. We teach a lot about doing joint ventures. I've done about $350 million worth. I know about it, and I know the importance of choosing the right joint venture partner.
And I think that's a perfect example with those guys. They pulled out. They just knew it wasn't right, but they'd gone down quite a way. And I think there was money invested, and they may have set up structure, whatever. I'm not fully, I don't fully remember the story, but I do know they walked away. And I just think good on them, because that's another reason that's part of DD, really.
Yeah, and you have to know when to walk.
Yeah, so the cost of pushing through to make that happen, the same as with our industrial one. If we'd push through, the cost, who even knows what that could be? You've just got to walk away.
At best, it would have been a struggle with those people.
Oh yeah, but I'm pretty sure it was dodgy contract and all sorts was going on there.
Yeah,
not great. Anyway, they did well, so check them out. Mint Developments. It's got MINTT. Craig and Tia. They're good, solid people.
Indeed.
All right, Bob, the last question. If someone's stuck right now and unsure whether to keep going or walk away, what question should they ask themselves?
It's pretty simple. I mean, I'm assuming they haven't gone to contract. So it could happen at various times when you might think, oh, something's not right. If it's before, and look, the time to pull away is before you sign a contract, or I should say before the door closes, because you can sign a contract. It could be subject to due diligence, finance. That's okay because you've got a back door. But if you don't have a back door, then you need to pull out before the back door closes. So that's pretty important. But really, there's no magic bullet here. It's all about numbers. That's what I love about property development. Yeah, it's grade 5 math. You don't have, if you left school at the end of year 5, that's enough math.
How good's that? Yeah.
And besides that, you've got our feasibility calculator if you have our course, which makes life really easy. But that's it. It's all about numbers. So you don't get emotional, pull out. If it's a bit later, let's say you bought a site and you just bought it as an old house on a block of land, you got your approvals, and now you're up to the construction stage. Well, it now definitely have to stack up for finance, and it's running a bit thin. You may have to wait a little bit. In some cases, sometimes putting in extra equity can tip it a deal that's not quite on margin, but that might mean getting more money, your money, maybe bringing in another investor. I mean, it's not where you want to be, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the road either. And so you have to obviously ask advice or get advice from experienced developers at that point when it gets a bit tricky. But ideally, don't get yourself into that position in the first place.
Well, Bob, I think we can wind this one up. I hope you're getting a lot out of our podcast. We would love for you to subscribe and leave a comment. Tell us what you think. How do you feel? Have you walked away? Have you not walked away? Let us know what you've been up to when it comes to property development. Remember, we offer a fabulous mentoring program. If you want to have a chat, reach out. Also, we've got our 3-day workshop, 1st, 2nd and 3rd of May. So keep in touch and we'll catch you guys again next week. Bye.
Bye now.